All right, gang, welcome aboard once again. It's time for the weekly Mac Forum video chat. I believe it's the September 3rd, 2017 edition of the show. Before we get started, I do want to send a shout out to some of the forum members over the past week, knowing that I was on the Gulf Coast. They asked numerous times about myself and some of our other members. Uh, as far as I know, all of our forum members on the Gulf Coast are high and dry, or at least the ones that we've heard from. Uh, and certainly, we ask you to keep those folks in mind that aren't so fortunate as you go through. And I want to be sure I mention to you if you're making donations to uh, Hurricane Harvey relief, or any time you're making a donation, really, um, try to find out a little something about the charitable organizations that you are giving money to. I know anytime there's some kind of a disaster of sorts, there's always someone out there doing some, so we shall we say, shady fundraising where the money may not necessarily be going either where you think it is or necessarily go towards something that you would particularly want to get behind. All right, enough said about that. Um, so I want to get you to a couple of things for today's show. We're making a minor little adjustment here. I got quite a few things on the agenda for today. Um, One of them, I thought I was going to get a chance to record a little video clip about. Didn't get a chance to do that, but I'm going to try and see if I can maybe add that as an addendum to the show video. So after the show, I'll try to upload an amended version of the video with that tip in it. We'll go through the tip anyway, and we'll include the little video tutorial segment that I had in mind uh, added as an addendum. All right, so let's dive right into things and see where we are this week. First of all, we have member Rainy Rooster. What a name. I like that. I just realized what that name said. I've read this thread 3 or 4 times this week, and I just realized what that name says. Ask a question. He wants to stop using the regular Mac mail client, and he wants to make Spark his default email program. Okay. And of course, fellow moderator and all around Mac Forum genius, Razor Edge, gave him the solution, which is not really a an intuitive one. What you need to do is to go into Mail, go to Preferences, okay, and go to the General tab. And I don't remember if I set up to capture this. I may put this one in the video as well. But as you can see, when you click on the General tab, the first option says Default Email Reader. And right now, it will normally be set to Mail. That's the standard default. When you click that drop down right there, you can set it to something else. I have mine set to Mail because it pretty much meets my needs as far as an email client, but other people may have a different thing in mind. So that'll give you an idea how to change it. It's, as I say, it's very easy to do, but it's not necessarily what I would call very intuitive by any stretch of the imagination. All right, so let's dive right on into a few other things here. I'm going to see if I can pull up a couple other things that we need to talk about. Let's see. This one deals with copying the photo library back from a USB drive. In other words, if you're in the habit of backing up your photo library to some type of external drive, you may see that you want to copy that back at some point. as member Todd Smith 365 does. And there's some good advice in the thread about how to do that. Generally, you can just move that library file into the same place where your existing library is. But one of the things that you can do, if somehow you've already gotten the library started, you do have the option to merge the libraries. Okay. And the post, it's currently post number 4 by member Nikki R, gives you some advice about how to do that. If you replace one library file with the other one, then you're going to get whatever library file you just replaced with. But if you've got one library file that has maybe a few things that you need, and you've got another library file with the bulk of your library, then yeah, now you want to look at that merge option. And so that's a good one. And I want to thank member Nikki R for giving us that answer. All right, next, coming up right here, one of our members asked a question about mouse and keyboard not being detected. Okay. And a lot of times when you see this kind of question, it is because of something like a maybe a Bluetooth error or some other wireless keyboard type issue, a maybe a bad cable on a wired keyboard. But this, in this case, is a member was setting up encryption on the Mac Mini. I assume by encryption that he means using the Apple encrypted system to encrypt the drive. Okay. And the system, he walked away from the machine. The system, the lock screen kicked in. And when he came back, the cursor would not move and he could not use the keyboard. Both devices were Apple Bluetooth cursor, mouse, I presume, and keyboard. Okay. And he had to use a wired mouse and keyboard to get past the login screen. Okay. And then all of a sudden, the Apple mouse and everything started working again. Okay. Now, normally you might say, well, this is a battery charging issue, but in this case, it doesn't appear to be. So it's a matter of this sometimes is a behavior, as Charlie points out, that you see during encryption. The encryption process can be time consuming. It can also be somewhat CPU intensive, depending upon the amount of data to be encrypted. So, what you want to do before you start trying to troubleshoot these kinds of issues is make sure that you've given that encryption procedure plenty of time to complete. I personally am not a fan of the file vault encryption. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind the idea of encrypting data, but the problem is uh, we get numerous posts from time to time, and they seem to come in waves from users who are not fully aware of all of the consequences of the encryption procedure and what it does to the drive, how long it takes, and some issues where you may have difficulty recovering things. All right, that takes care of that. But do keep that in mind about the keyboard and mouse. I had not read that one until I read Charlie's post. Encryption is not one of the things. File vault is not one of the things that I follow routinely. So that's one little quirk that I had not noticed. All right, this is the tip that I had intended to do the video for, and rather than try to set it up now in the middle of the show, because I had to make some wiring changes right before the show started, and didn't get a chance to set this up. But basically, one of our members wanted to know if they're using their iPhone to play back YouTube videos, and they fall asleep. What can they do to make the thing stop. So it's just not continually playing while they're asleep. And they were looking for a third party application that might do this. Now, I don't know if there's a third party application that can do this, but I can tell you that it's possible to do with the software that's built into iOS 10. Now, this is a quick and dirty solution. It uses some things that are already in iOS 10, and therefore, and actually, I believe this also worked in earlier versions of iOS. So if you're not running iOS 10, give this a try and see if it works, because it uses some software that's been in the um, iOS system for quite some time. What you want to do is on your iPad or your iPhone, open the utilities folder and open the clock application. Go to the timer. Okay, this is important because as far as I know, this is the only area of the clock where you can do this. Go to the timer section, create a countdown timer, okay, that is longer than you think you'll need. Okay, so for example, if you know that you sort of usually fall asleep after about a half an hour, set that timer for, say, 45 minutes or so. Uh, Set the countdown timer for a little bit longer than you think you need. Okay, and then there is an entry there that says when timer ends. Tap right there and choose the option stop playing. There's an option there called stop playing. Start the timer, okay? And then go to YouTube or whatever it is that you were listening to. All right? Now, when the timer runs out, it's going to stop the video or whatever, or for that matter, it works in iTunes. That's when I first became aware of this. I haven't tried it with Audible, but so far it's worked with anything audio video related that I've tried it with. I tested this yesterday by setting the countdown timer to something short, like 5 minutes. And then I loaded up a YouTube video of something like the Red Green Show that I knew was longer. It's about a 30-minute video. And sure enough, it works. So this is a good one. And you can use this once you set this up. All you have to do is go in and make an adjustment in the timer if you need to, and then launch the application that you want to view or to listen to. So you don't have to recreate this timer every time you get ready to use it. Just leave it there, and it'll come back and set you up. So maybe the next time you might want an hour. Then all you got to do is go in and change that time from 45 minutes to an hour, and then go ahead and view your video or listen to your audio content, knowing that it's going to turn things off. And basically what it does is just stop everything when the time runs out. So that's a good one. As I say, I'll try to do a little quickie video on that and attach it to the end of the show later tonight when I edit out the little streaming tag at the beginning. All right, now this one started by fellow moderator Razor Edge. This is a thread talking about Apple, the new APFS, the Apple file system, that's going to be available in High Sierra. Okay, now basically, for those of you that haven't been following this, and if you're a non-techie, here's the way I would explain this. The file system is how the computer keeps track of all the various files on your hard drive. And every file system has its limitations. For example, if you've come over from Windows, you know, for example, that a FAT32 formatted drive can only hold, each individual file can only be 4 gigabyte or less. If it's larger, FAT32 can't really deal with it. Well, every file system has its pros and cons, and HFS Plus, which is the current system, has been around for a while. And Apple's introducing with High Sierra a new file system called APFS, and it's supposed to be very good at dealing with two things. One, that more and more computer systems are moving to flash slash SSD based storage, and two, the large number of files that are potentially on systems. I've been around Mac for a long time, and I remember playing around with some Macs that didn't even have hard drives, and now we've got Macs with uh, hard drives that are in the terabyte or 2 terabyte range. So you're talking about a tremendous increase. And there was a story going around that HFS Plus or that APFS would not support, was only going to work on SSDs. That's not entirely true. I have it on. I've been running the various public betas since shortly after they became available, and there's an article linked to later in the thread that kind of clears this up a little bit. Uh, the APFS formatted drive will also work with the Fusion drives. I have not tried it on a regular rotating hard drive. That's not a Fusion drive. Just because I didn't have a spare hard drive laying around that I wanted to convert to the new format. One of the issues that's going to come about is whether the hard drive gets converted automatically or whether you have a choice in the matter. Now, there's an article linked to here that discusses that a little bit more. Uh, and so I'm going to leave those references in the thread. But essentially, with my Fusion drive, I had the option to convert it. It looks like, and I say looks like because the final release of High Sierra hasn't happened yet. It looks like if you apply APFS to a flash drive, that conversion is going to happen automatically. I'll try to pin that down. And when I personally, without any particular knowledge, am expecting High Sierra to drop sometime between now and the middle of next month. So in the next 5 to 6 weeks, if not before. That's just me and noticing what Apple has done with the last couple of OS releases. Uh, when either shortly before or shortly after, depending on whether it drops midweek like it usually does, I plan to do an entire show devoted to some of the things that I've learned about the High Sierra operating system, and I'll talk a little bit about APFS. I haven't done it yet because we're still in the beta, and it seems like every time a new beta is released, they fix something that was an issue for some people before. The betas, in my mind, have consistently gotten better and better, and so we'll see what the final release is going to be like. But I want to wait until we have the final release in our hands before I start talking to you about the pros and cons of setting up APFS and all of that. All right, this is a link that's in that thread talking about APFS and Mac OS High Sierra if you want to get a head start on it. Okay, devices that are formatted as HFS Plus can be read and written to by devices formatted as APFS. That is true. I have found that to be true. Um, it can also write to other APFS formatted drives. And let me just give you a real quick look here. I've got several hard drives connected to my machine at the moment. And the first one there is the APFS drive. All of the others, ignore the time machine backup thing for a second, but these others, El Capitan, Emergency, etc., 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 are all HFS plus drives that I have been writing to over the time that we've been doing the test. So that's a good indication that things are kind of what they say they are, so to speak. Let me go ahead and I'll get my screen back up here and show you a couple other things that that's not it. Sorry about that, guys. Wrong window there. All right, here we go. Let's see. I need this one. There we go. Now we're back on track. So that gives you some ideas. It also has some guidance on APFS and File Vault and APFS and Boot Camp. Boot Camp is one feature that I have not tested because I don't have Boot Camp set up at the moment, and I don't have a real need to go out and purchase Windows 10. All right. Now, one of the other things I want to point out, we occasionally have posts from members about how to transfer text messages from iPhone to the Mac or to another iPhone. This article from Macworld kind of describes how to do it. I will say that the best and easiest way to transfer things is through the iCloud backup system. All right, when you're setting up a new phone, it will, if you've been backing up your messages through iCloud, it generally takes care of that really well. If you want to transfer text messages from one phone to another without using a backup, you're going to need some third-party applications. They mentioned Phone View as one. I've used a program called iMazing. There's also another one called iExplorer, and you can pull messages as well as other content. The article also goes into a little bit on transferring messages to the PC. So we'll, I'm going to leave that link in so that you can have a look at that and see what you think should you need it. That's some very useful information there. All right, and this is something that I found on the Apple website, the discussion board site last night, and I thought I would include this in the show. If you'll notice, this is an announcement. This is what I saw right before I signed in, and you can also get this message when you sign in. They have now added what they call, they have what, if you're not familiar with it, what they've got as far as a structure to the support site is the following. Each major area is called a community. So if you're looking at Automator, for example, there's an Automator, quote unquote, community. iTunes, community. iPhone, community. Each of these major areas is a community. They have now created a community that deals with Apple ID questions. I was looking last night at some of the questions, and they're the kinds of things that people end up asking a lot. Things like, what do I do if I've got two different IDs? What do I do if this, if that? So that's going to probably turn out to be a good area to go to. Just in a quick glance of the content, the messages seem to be on point, and so that's a good one to know. If you have an Apple ID question, or you know someone that does, this might be a good place to go to get it answered. All right, next, finally, just real quick, I'll put a link to this video. I'm not going to play it right now, but as you know, I have had my own little issues with Siri, okay? Including one time when it insulted me because I yelled at it. But someone has a video of Siri singing the lyrics to Bohemian Rhapsody. And just for the heck of it, I'll put that in the end, just as a little fun there. All right, guys, that's going to just about do it for today's show. A lot of information stuck in there. And as I said, I'll add a little quickie video explaining how to set up that timer, and may also do the one on mail, just in case somebody doesn't know where to go. It's very easy to make a mistake, things like that. So I'll put a video that has both of those added to the tail end of the show, and look for that probably later tonight. I really need to get that done tonight because tomorrow I'll probably be busy with a number of other things. So that's going to just about do it for me this week, guys. And for the September 3rd edition of the Mac Forum video chat. I hope that you find this information helpful. If you see me in the forum, I'm a Sly Dude in the forum. And if you see me and you have a question about the show, ask. Post it in the forum thread. There's a thread going there, a Mac Forum Sunday chat. As you can see, it's in the community announcement page. It's up to about something on the order of about 15 pages now. That thread has links to all the previous shows and the show notes for almost all of the shows with links to the content. So it's a good repository of information. All right, guys. So I will see you in the forum, and I'll see you next week on the Mac Forum video chat.